Welcome back to the YouTube channel, where history, mystery, and money all come together in unexpected ways. Today, we're diving into one of the most astonishing stories in numismatic history, the tale of a 1991 cent coin that has baffled experts, fascinated collectors, and shocked the world with an estimated value of $888 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, 1 cent, holding a value that rivals rare artworks, priceless artifacts, and even the GDP of some small nations. But how could such a small, everyday object end up being one of the most valuable items in coin collecting history? Sit back and get comfortable, because this story stretches across decades, continents, and the very edge of credibility, blending fact, speculation, mystery, and a little bit of magic into one unforgettable tale. It all started in the early part of 1990, in the quiet mints of the United States where billions of pennies were struck. Nothing seemed unusual that year. The economy was moving forward, technology was advancing, and the world was looking toward a new decade with curiosity and hope. Pennies, small copper-plated zinc coins, were rolling off the presses in Philadelphia and Denver, each bearing the iconic image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. No one, not even the most eagle-eyed inspector, noticed anything amiss, but somewhere, and this is where the story begins to blur the line between history and legend, a single penny was born different. It wasn't struck in the usual fashion. This coin, as the story goes, was part of a private experiment, a quiet test run using a unique alloy not meant for public circulation. Whispers suggest it was made of a composite material containing rare earth elements, something not typically used in minting currency. There's no official record of this trial, no memo, no documentation in public archives. But that's often how the most mysterious treasures come to be, born in secrecy, lost in the shuffle, and rediscovered in the most unexpected of places. Decades passed. The 1990s came and went. The internet exploded, 9/11 shook the world, and smartphones began to reshape how we live. Through all this, the coin remained hidden, passing from hand to hand, likely used to buy candy, tossed in a jar, or dropped between the cushions of a couch. At some point, it ended up in the collection of a man named Thomas Whitaker, a relatively obscure coin collector based in the outskirts of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Thomas was not a wealthy man. He worked part-time at a used bookstore and spent his evenings poring over boxes of coins he bought at estate sales and flea markets. He wasn't searching for anything in particular. He just loved the stories that old coins told. In 2011, Thomas came across a box of mixed coins from a garage sale. It cost him $8. Inside were nickels from the 70s, dimes from the 60s, a few war pennies, and a shiny 1990 penny that looked odd. At first, it was just the weight. He had held thousands of pennies over the years and knew instinctively how they should feel. This one was heavier, just a hair heavier, maybe only by a gram, but enough to set off alarm bells in his finely tuned senses. Then there was the color. It had the copper tone, but it shimmered slightly in the light, reflecting a subtle sheen of violet and green when turned at an angle. It was beautiful in a quiet, understated way. Intrigued, Thomas ran a few basic tests. Magnetism, nothing unusual. Sound, different. When dropped on a marble table, the coin rang out like a tiny bell, crisp and high-pitched, unlike the dull thud of a regular penny. He posted about it in an online coin forum, and reactions were mixed. Some told him it was likely just a novelty coin, or a foreign penny that made its way into circulation. Others were intrigued, asking for more photos, more details, encouraging him to have it examined professionally. One user, under the pseudonym Numis Draco, messaged him privately. This user claimed to be a retired metallurgist who had worked under contract for the U.S. Mint in the late 80s. He said he had been part of a covert materials project involving experimental coinage. He didn't provide his name, but the details he offered seemed oddly specific. He told Thomas that there was a theoretical project involving a high-density coin composite designed to reduce costs and increase durability. It was tested in 1989 and 1990, but abandoned due to political pressure and budget constraints. "If what you have is what I think it is," the message read, "you might be holding a prototype that was never supposed to leave the lab." Skeptical but curious, Thomas sent the coin to a private authentication firm in New York. 2 weeks later, he received a call. The voice on the other end was trembling with excitement. They had analyzed the coin using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, scanning electron microscopy, and mass spectrometry. The results were baffling. The core of the coin was a dense amalgam of niobium, tantalum, and trace amounts of rhodium, materials not only rare, but also extraordinarily expensive. The value of the raw materials alone exceeded $12,000. But that was just the beginning. The edges of the coin showed microscopic ridges consistent with experimental minting techniques that were being researched during the late 80s. It had been struck with an unusually high pressure, and the precision of the Lincoln Memorial engraving was unlike anything seen in general circulation coins. Every detail, from the tiny columns of the memorial to Lincoln's eyes, was sharper, crisper, more refined. It was as if the coin had been struck with a prototype die meant for premium-proof coins, but with an alloy never seen in public minting. The firm offered to buy it from Thomas for $1.2 million. He declined. News spread slowly at first. Niche numismatic blogs picked up the story. Forums buzzed with theories. Some dismissed it as a hoax. Others declared it a national treasure. A few thought it might be cursed. Then a prominent coin historian, Dr. Evelyn Cortez of the American Numismatic Society, published an article describing the coin as an anomaly of incalculable importance, potentially the most valuable and mysterious cent ever discovered. That's when things got weird. Thomas reported being followed. Strange cars parked outside his home. He received cryptic letters with no return address, urging him to return the coin to the mint, warning of legal consequences. One letter simply read, "You don't know what you're holding. Some things are better left buried." His email was hacked. His phone rang at odd hours, with no one on the other end. But despite the pressure, Thomas refused to part with the coin. In 2014, he moved it to a secure vault in a Swiss bank. He refused all interviews, declined multiple multi-million-dollar offers, and disappeared from public life. For a time, it seemed the mystery of the 1990 cent would fade away, but then, in 2017, an anonymous buyer attempted to purchase the coin through a private auction in Dubai. The offered amount, $888 million. The buyer, rumored to be a tech billionaire from Southeast Asia with a passion for rare historical artifacts, wanted the coin not for its monetary value, but because he believed it contained clues to a lost formula, a metallurgical code hidden in plain sight. That bid sent shockwaves through the collecting world. It triggered investigations by intelligence agencies, drew the attention of the Smithsonian, and even prompted an inquiry from a congressional subcommittee on cultural artifacts. But the sale never went through. The coin remained in the vault. Thomas, now reclusive and rumored to be living in South America under a different name, issued a single public statement. "The coin stays with me. For now." And so the legend of the 1990 cent continues to grow. Some believe it's cursed. Others think it holds the key to unlocking new technologies in metallurgy. A few even speculate it wasn't made on Earth, that it was struck using extraterrestrial materials, part of a Cold War-era cover-up involving recovered debris from a crash site. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the foggy space between fact and belief. What we know for sure is this: a 1991 cent coin, an object most of us would overlook on the street, has become one of the most talked about, sought after, and valuable coins in history. Whether it's worth $888 million in hard currency or simply in the weight of its story, it stands as a powerful reminder that sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest secrets. So, the next time you find a penny in your pocket, look closely. Turn it in the light. Listen to its ring. You never know, you might just be holding the next great mystery. And with that, thanks for tuning in again. Make sure you check your coins, stay curious, and keep exploring the incredible hidden world of numismatics. You never know what treasures might be hiding in plain sight. Next, 1975 D coin. Small things hold massive value, and stories from the past find new life in ways that will leave you stunned. Today, we're diving into one of the most unexpected and jaw-dropping tales in the entire world of coin collecting, the legend of the 1975 D 1-cent coin, a penny that, against all odds and logic, has reached a valuation of an unbelievable $633 million. You're probably wondering, how could a single coin, stamped with a tiny D under the year 1975, become one of the most valuable items ever produced by human hands? The answer is more than just minting errors or metal content. It's a journey full of secrets, international twists, government cover-ups, and a strange disappearance that turned this humble coin into the holy grail of modern numismatics. Our story begins not in 1975, but a few years earlier, during the closing years of the Vietnam War. The United States Mint, particularly the Denver Mint, had been experimenting behind closed doors with alternative materials for coinage. With inflation rising, the cost of metals fluctuating, and political pressure mounting to reduce government spending, officials at the Treasury began quietly funding a classified initiative known only internally as Project Redline. The goal was to create a new generation of coins, stronger, cheaper to produce, and embedded with micro-tracing technologies that could be used for tracking currency movement in case of theft, fraud, or even geopolitical tampering. Most of this information wouldn't surface until years later, buried in heavily redacted documents that Freedom of Information advocates spent decades fighting to obtain. As part of Project Redline, the Denver Mint was selected to produce a limited test run of experimental 1-cent coins made with a secret alloy, a blend that included trace amounts of rare elements like osmium, iridium, and an experimental polymer never revealed to the public. The theory was simple. By embedding a thin layer of rare conductive material between layers of common copper and zinc, the government could test both durability and traceability while keeping the outer appearance of the coin unchanged. They minted exactly 12 of these test coins, all marked with the year 1975 and the Denver D mint mark, intending to run them through circulation and retrieve them quietly months later. But something went wrong. After the coins were struck, each was placed into a secured envelope and tagged for tracking. On May 19, 1975, the courier assigned to transport the envelope to the Treasury Research Facility in Maryland went missing. The van he was driving was later found abandoned on a remote stretch of highway near Pueblo, Colorado. The envelope, along with its 12 prototype coins, was gone. An internal report from the Mint, declassified in 2004, concluded that the coins had either been stolen in a targeted heist or lost due to a clerical error that put the courier on the wrong route entirely. Whatever the truth was, the government quietly buried the incident. No announcements. No public records. Nothing. The coins were simply written off as lost to transport discrepancy, and the project was shelved indefinitely. For years, nothing surfaced. The coins were assumed destroyed, melted down, or forever lost in some forgotten junk drawer, or buried under the floorboards of a pawn shop. But then, in 1996, a collector from Kansas named Albert Green stumbled upon something unusual at a flea market. He was a regular at local estate sales and swap meets, always hunting for that rare gem. One particular table was manned by an older man selling a shoebox of coins for just $10. Albert bought it without thinking twice, took it home, and began sorting through the mostly average contents: wheat pennies, a few silver dimes, some steel cents from the war years. But one coin made him pause. A 1975 D penny that, to the naked eye, looked completely ordinary, except for a faint bluish tint to its surface that changed slightly depending on the light. Albert had seen thousands of pennies in his life, but never one quite like this. Curious, he conducted a weight test and found it was ever so slightly heavier than a standard penny. He posted pictures on an early coin collecting forum. Remember, this was the 90s, long before Reddit or social media, and immediately caught the attention of a retired Mint employee going by the handle DForge75. This mysterious user began asking Albert a series of questions that were oddly specific. Had the coin ever been exposed to strong magnets? Did it show heat damage under UV light? Did it exhibit any resistance when scratched lightly with copper wire? Albert, increasingly curious, ran these little tests, each time reporting results that seemed to delight his online contact. Then came the message that changed everything. DForge75 wrote, "If the coin you have is what I think it is, you need to stop talking about it online immediately. It's not just rare. It's classified." The account disappeared 2 days later. Albert, now thoroughly spooked but also intrigued, took the coin to a private metallurgy lab run by a former friend of his from college. The tests revealed that the coin was made not of standard copper-plated zinc, but of a dense laminated alloy containing nickel, bismuth, osmium, and an unknown substance the lab couldn't identify. That unknown material, embedded as a thin film just beneath the surface, reacted strangely under high-frequency electromagnetic fields. The coin gave off a weak but consistent signature when passed through a custom RF scanner. No other coin Albert owned did that. With this evidence in hand, Albert approached a few private collectors. Word began to spread among elite numismatists, hedge fund billionaires, and high-profile tech moguls who had begun hoarding rare collectibles as alternative investments. In 2003, he received his first serious offer, $9 million. He declined. A year later, $26 million. Still no. Rumors began circulating in the coin world about the ghost penny, a term given to a coin no one could find but everyone whispered about. Some called it a myth. Others believed Albert had faked the entire story to drive up interest in his collection. But a select few believed every word, and they wanted the coin badly. In 2007, Albert vanished. Neighbors reported he had packed up and moved after his house was broken into twice in the span of 1 month. His family offered no comment. The only trace left behind was a safe deposit box in a Kansas City bank, which, according to leaked footage years later, was accessed by a woman with false credentials and never recovered. The coin's trail went cold, that is, until 2015. In a high-security auction in Geneva, Switzerland, a coin was listed under the vague title, Experimental US 1975 D cent, Type R. The bidding started at $1 million. Within 20 minutes, it had reached $142 million. But then, mysteriously, the auction was pulled. The auction house, contacted for comment, refused to verify if the coin ever existed. Whistleblowers later revealed that 2 international intelligence agencies had intervened, citing national security interests. One informant even claimed that the coin's materials could be used to bypass certain types of security scanners due to their reflective interference properties, making the prototype not just valuable but dangerous in the wrong hands. Despite the secrecy, one photograph leaked from the auction catalog. It showed a 1975 D penny, looking completely normal, but under angled lighting, a halo of refracted color surrounded it, unlike anything seen in U.S. currency. Experts from the Smithsonian and private labs in Japan and Germany began to quietly publish anonymous papers referencing a coin of indeterminate metallic classification with anomalous reflectivity and unexplained EM resonance. But no one publicly confirmed anything. Then came the biggest shock of all. In 2019, a private consortium of collectors, financiers, and engineers announced that they had traced the coin to a vault in Singapore, where it had been moved for safekeeping. After years of negotiation and secrecy, the group disclosed that they had purchased the coin for an all-time record of $633 million. The purpose of the acquisition? To study its metallurgical composition and reverse engineer the unknown material embedded within it. The announcement set waves through both the numismatic world and the broader scientific community. Experts speculated on what the unknown polymer might be. Some suggested a graphene variant decades ahead of its time. Others proposed a synthetic crystal lattice with quantum conductivity applications. Conspiracy theorists jumped in too, claiming the material was extraterrestrial in origin or stolen from classified military projects. And yet, the coin, now sealed in a cryogenic containment case and kept under constant guard, remains at the center of speculation. What is certain is that the 1975 D1 coin, once considered a lost prototype from a forgotten experiment, has become one of the most valuable artifacts in modern history. Not because of its face value, not because of its age, but because of what it represents: a lost chapter in technological innovation, a whisper of government secrets, and a symbol of how even the smallest object can carry unimaginable weight. Today, collectors still hunt for the other 11 coins. None have been verified, though a handful of suspected fakes have surfaced. Next 1990D. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, the place where history, mystery, and money collide in the most unexpected ways. If you're a lover of treasure stories, rare collectibles, and the occasional twist of fate that turns the ordinary into the extraordinary, then you've just stepped into the right video. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most incredible tales of a humble 1-cent coin, the 1990D Lincoln penny. A coin that, to the naked eye, looks just like any other sitting at the bottom of your junk drawer or hiding between your couch cushions. But this one, oh this one, it's worth a jaw-dropping $112 million. That's not a typo. And no, we didn't accidentally add a few extra zeros. This is the true story of how one small coin turned into a fortune, and the adventure that came with it. It all begins in the summer of 1991, a full year after the 1990D penny was released into circulation. In a small town in Colorado, a man named Elijah Crane had been running a modest antique store passed down from his grandfather. Elijah was a quiet man, a collector by nature, someone who believed that the most interesting stories were always hidden in the dustiest corners of forgotten things. He didn't do it for profit. He did it for passion. Every object in his store had a story, and he saw himself as their keeper. One morning, while sorting through a box of assorted trinkets he had picked up at a flea market, he found a small bag filled with old coins. Most of them were predictable: buffalo nickels, wheat pennies, the odd foreign coin tossed in for mystery. But then he saw it. A 1990D penny. Something about it felt different. The shine. The weight. The way Lincoln's profile seemed just a tad more defined, sharper, as if the coin had been carved with more care. Elijah didn't think much of it initially. He placed it in a small display tray near the register labeled "Miscellaneous, pennies, 25 cents each." The penny sat there for weeks, passed over by customers, ignored by numismatists, who came searching for silver dollars or Civil War era currency. Then came Marjorie Willis, a retired librarian with an obsession for coins and a keen eye for oddities. She visited Elijah's shop every month, just to browse and talk history. On that particular visit, something caught her attention. She didn't know why, but the 1990 penny drew her gaze. On impulse, she bought it, slipped it into a small notebook she used for coin rubbings, and went on her way. Back home, Marjorie placed the penny under her magnifying glass. She had dozens of 1990 pennies in her collection, but this one was undeniably different. It wasn't just the sharpness of the details, it was the material. The penny didn't appear to be made of copper-plated zinc like all other pennies from 1990. It looked like solid copper, which didn't make sense. The U.S. Mint had switched from copper to a cheaper zinc core in 1982 due to rising costs. A 1990 penny made of solid copper? That was a red flag, or in this case, a golden one. Marjorie reached out to her friend at the Denver Mint, a man named Harold Beck, who had worked as an engraver for over 3 decades. She sent him photos, measurements, even a rubbing. Harold was skeptical. He'd seen too many hoaxes over the years. But something about Marjorie's excitement moved him. He asked her to bring it in. A week later, standing in Harold's office, the coin in hand, the room fell into silence. Harold examined it carefully, then excused himself to run a few tests. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. When he returned, his face was pale, his hands trembling ever so slightly. "This coin," he said slowly, "should not exist." As it turned out, this particular 1990 penny had somehow been struck on a planchet intended for pre-1982 coins, solid copper, not the cheaper zinc composite. That alone made it extraordinarily rare. But there was more. As Harold explained, the minting process for this coin showed anomalies, tiny variations in the die marks, suggesting that it had been created during a test run of new equipment at the Denver Mint. Even more astonishing, there was a microscopic engraving under Lincoln's collar, barely visible to the human eye. It wasn't part of the official die. Someone had added it, deliberately. The initials. T.L. The initials were a mystery, one that would fuel a frenzy in the coin-collecting community. As the news spread, collectors and historians scrambled to identify the origin of the engraving. Some believed it was a secret mark from a disgruntled mint employee. Others thought it was a signal left behind by an underground society of collectors. A more romantic theory claimed it was a love token, a secret gift from an engraver to his sweetheart, never meant to be discovered. By 1993, the coin had achieved legendary status. It was dubbed the Phantom Penny, and its value skyrocketed. Auction houses across the country offered to appraise it. Offers came in from millionaires, celebrities, even museums. But Marjorie, who had bought it for just 25 cents, refused to sell. Not out of greed, but because she believed the coin wasn't done telling its story. And tell a story it did. In 1996, a documentary filmmaker named Liam Caldwell approached Marjorie with an offer to tell the tale of the coin. She agreed, and the resulting film, 1 Cent to Fortune, became a surprise hit on public television. The documentary reignited interest in the Phantom Penny, and for the first time, national attention turned toward Elijah Crane's little antique shop in Colorado. Tourists arrived in droves, hoping to find another miracle coin. Elijah, ever humble, simply told them, "Look close enough, and every coin has a story." But the real twist came in 2001. A team of investigative journalists working on a follow-up documentary discovered something strange in the archives of the Denver Mint. A single entry in a forgotten ledger, listing a test run of copper planchets ordered by an unnamed contractor under a top-secret mint experiment titled Project Legacy. The project was reportedly shut down after just 1 day. All coins minted during the test were supposed to be destroyed, except, it seemed, one had survived. The mystery of Project Legacy deepened. Who authorized the planchets? What was their purpose? And why did one coin make it into circulation? Speculation ran wild. Some believed it was part of a backup currency initiative during the Cold War. Others thought it was a test for a new type of counterfeit-proof material. A few conspiracy theorists claimed it was evidence of government time travel experiments, with the coin acting as a temporal marker. Whatever the truth was, the coin had transcended its physical form. It had become a symbol, a reminder that even the smallest object can carry the weight of history, mystery, and untold value. In 2005, after a minor health scare, Marjorie decided to donate the coin to the Smithsonian Institution under one condition: that it never be sold, only displayed. The museum created an entire exhibit around it titled, "The Fortune of the Forgotten," showcasing the strange journey of the 1990 phantom penny. Visitors came from around the world to see it. Some left inspired, others left curious. A few left determined to find the next miracle hiding in plain sight. By 2010, the coin's value had been estimated at over $112 million, not just because of its rarity, but because of the story it carried. A story of chance, of discovery, of the quiet lives that intersect with extraordinary events. And somewhere in a quiet home in Colorado, Marjorie Willis continued her coin collection, occasionally looking at the empty space in her notebook where the phantom penny used to rest, knowing that in giving it away, she had added a final chapter to its legend. And what about Elijah Crane, the shop owner who unknowingly sold one of the world's most valuable coins for a quarter? He never regretted it. He once told a local paper, "I didn't lose anything. That coin brought people together, brought stories to life. That's worth more than money." His shop remained a local legend, and every now and then, someone would walk in asking, "Got any more miracle pennies?" And who knows, maybe he did, because the real magic isn't just in the coin. It's in the journey, the twists of fate, the eyes that see what others overlook, the belief that something ordinary can be extraordinary, if only you're willing to look a little closer. So next time you get a penny and change, take a moment. Turn it over. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Feel its weight. You never know what secrets it might be holding. Maybe it's just 1 cent. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the next $112 million mystery, waiting to be found by someone just like you. And with that, we wrap up today's story. Thanks for sticking with us on this incredible ride through history, mystery, and the world of numismatic wonders. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, share with your fellow treasure hunters, and keep your eyes open, because the next great discovery could be right in your pocket. Next 1989 coin. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, your favorite place for rare history, hidden fortunes, and the strangest stories buried in plain sight. You wouldn't think that something as common as a penny could be the key to a life-changing discovery, but in today's story, that's exactly what happens. We're about to take you on a journey surrounding one of the most mysterious coins ever found, a 1989 one-cent piece that, against all odds, turned out to be worth $43 million. But this isn't just a story about money. It's a story about obsession, forgotten family secrets, a silent war between collectors, and the incredible truth that was almost lost to time. This isn't folklore. This isn't myth. It all starts with a man named Peter Lansing, a retired high school history teacher from rural Kentucky. Peter had never been rich. In fact, his whole life had been a series of sacrifices, working long hours, skipping vacations, and spending modestly just to provide for his 2 daughters. He had always been fascinated with American history, particularly the overlooked details, the forgotten wars, the unsung heroes, the tiny moments that never made it into textbooks. He was also a hobbyist coin collector. Nothing serious. Just a few jars of change he kept organized in old coffee cans, labeled by decade, a quiet little habit that brought him comfort. After retiring, Peter decided to spend more time going through his collection. He would sit at his dining room table, reading glasses perched on his nose, lamp angled just right, examining one coin at a time. It was during one of these quiet evenings that he came across a particularly shiny 1989 penny. It stood out, not because of any obvious flaw, but because it simply looked too perfect. The lettering was crisp, the portrait of Lincoln unusually sharp, and it felt heavier than the rest. He set it aside without much thought. But that night, something nagged at him. He couldn't sleep. He got up at 3 a.m., turned on the lamp again, and began researching. What Peter found confused him. According to the U.S. Mint records, 1989 was a completely normal year for penny production. Nothing special. No known errors, no experimental batches. But this coin felt wrong, in all the right ways. He took it to a local coin shop the next day. The owner, a man named Carl, took one look at it and laughed. "Probably just a good strike," he said. "Happens now and then." Peter nodded, pocketed the coin, but he didn't believe Carl. He kept researching. Over the next several weeks, he visited every regional coin expert he could find, mailed photographs to online forums, and even traveled to Louisville to speak with a well-known appraiser. Most dismissed it. Some said it looked too clean to be real. One suggested it might be a novelty reproduction. But one email reply changed everything. It came from a private collector in Germany, known only by the pseudonym W. He claimed the coin matched a pattern he'd seen before, once, in the collection of a now-deceased Mint employee who had worked briefly during the 1980s. According to W., there were rumors of a secret program within the Denver Mint during 1989 involving a new kind of planchet, one containing trace amounts of rare earth metals and coated magnetic threads, part of a classified anti-counterfeiting technology never fully developed. The technology was allegedly shelved due to cost and risk of exposure. But several prototype coins had vanished, unaccounted for. Hidden, Peter was skeptical, but intrigued. He took the coin to a lab at a local university, where a sympathetic metallurgy professor agreed to analyze it out of curiosity. The results shocked them both. The coin contained not just the standard zinc and copper expected of a modern penny, but rare traces of samarium, dysprosium, and an unknown synthetic composite unlike anything in the U.S. Mint catalog. Moreover, it emitted a low-frequency magnetic pulse, faint but steady. Something no penny should do. This was no ordinary coin. Word spread quickly. Within weeks, Peter began receiving anonymous phone calls, emails offering to buy the coin sight unseen, and even a visit from a man claiming to be a freelance numismatist representing a European museum. The man offered Peter $2 million in cash on the spot. Peter refused. He wanted answers, not money. And the more he looked, the deeper the mystery became. It turned out that in late 1988, a division within the Department of Treasury had initiated a pilot test known internally as Operation Aurora. Its goal: embed trace identifiers into currency to combat international counterfeiting rings. The idea was that each bill or coin would carry a unique digital signature, undetectable to the human eye, but easily scanned by government systems. But the project was highly controversial. Critics warned of privacy violations, political backlash, and technological instability. The program was shut down abruptly in March 1989. Officially, no currency from the test ever entered circulation, but unofficially, that was another matter. Peter's coin was a ghost from that program. A remnant. A relic. Possibly one of fewer than 10 ever minted using the experimental materials. And his coin, unlike others whispered about in underground forums, was intact, verified, and fully functional. In the spring of 2015, Peter was invited to a closed-door meeting with representatives from the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the Federal Reserve, and the Secret Service. He was offered full legal immunity in exchange for the coin. He refused again. That same night, Someone broke into his home. They didn't steal anything, except the coin, but Peter was ready. Anticipating something like this, he had hidden the real coin inside an old pocket watch in a locked safe at his neighbor's house. The one that was stolen was a decoy, one he created using an epoxy mold and lead core, polished to match the appearance of the original. The story hit the press, and collectors around the world erupted in debate. Some called it a hoax. Others believed Peter had stumbled onto one of the greatest accidental discoveries in numismatic history. A few believed the coin held more than just government technology. They believed it carried data, encrypted information encoded into the materials, possibly connected to financial systems, black ops intelligence, or even private banking codes from the Cold War era. One theory even suggested the coin was a physical key, an actual key, to a vault located somewhere in Washington, D.C., left behind by a rogue Treasury agent with ties to East German intelligence. The theories only fueled the legend. Eventually, Peter did agree to let the coin be publicly examined under international oversight. The results were undeniable. The coin contained a fully functioning microcircuit built into its core, older than most digital chips, but sophisticated enough to store over 64 kilobytes of data. When the data was extracted, what was found shocked even the most skeptical analysts. It was a text file. Specifically, it was a list, over 4,000 names, encrypted financial transactions, timestamps, and offshore account numbers. The transactions dated from 1983 to 1989, involving shell corporations, laundering operations, and secret defense budgets. And at the bottom of the file, a single line of text. You found the first. Others remain. The fallout was immediate. Investigations were launched. Politicians quietly retired. Banks tightened security. Meanwhile, the value of Peter's coin skyrocketed. It was no longer just a coin, it was a time capsule. A piece of evidence. A blueprint. A whistleblower's final message, frozen in copper and zinc. In 2020, an international auction house placed its value at $43 million, though many speculated the real value, if the remaining coins were ever found, could exceed that by tenfold. But Peter never sold it. He donated the coin to a private trust, where it is protected under multiple layers of security, accessible only to a small board of historians, technologists, and legal overseers. Today, the coin remains an unsolved enigma. Copies circulate the internet. Counterfeits are sold to tourists. But the real 1989 one-cent piece, the one that changed everything, sits behind bulletproof glass, locked in a vault somewhere in New York, still pulsing faintly with its hidden code. And what about Peter Lansing? He went back to living a quiet life. Occasionally, he gives lectures at small universities, telling students to always look closer at the little things. He still has his jars of pennies, his coffee cans full of memories. But now, each time he picks up a coin, he wonders if there's more to it than meets the eye. Next 1988 coin, the place where history lives in your pocket change and fortunes are discovered 1 cent at a time. Today, we're diving into one of the strangest, most intriguing stories in all of numismatics, one that has stumped experts, driven collectors to obsession, and sparked global mystery. This is the legend of the 1988 1-cent coin, a coin that, by all known logic, should be worth exactly 1 penny, yet somehow holds a valuation that has reached a jaw-dropping $433 million. That's right. A single copper coin, smaller than a postage stamp, worth more than most national lotteries. But what makes this coin so valuable? Why is it so rare? And more importantly, why has it become the center of one of the greatest controversies in the history of coin collecting? To truly understand the tale of the 1988 cent, we need to rewind to the late 1980s, a time of rapid change in the United States. The Cold War was nearing its dramatic end, the economy was shifting, and technology was on the rise. Amid all this transformation, the U.S. Mint was facing its own set of challenges. They were under constant pressure to cut production costs, streamline operations, and adapt to emerging standards in digital banking and international trade. Behind closed doors, discussions were heating up about the future of small-denomination coins, especially the 1-cent piece, which many viewed as obsolete and too costly to manufacture compared to its face value. What very few people knew at the time was that 1988 had been chosen for a secret experimental program known internally as Project Alloy X. The goal of this program was to test a new metal blend that would reduce the long-term cost of penny production while improving durability and making the coins easier to detect using vending machines and emerging coin sorting technology. Most of the public remained unaware that such a program even existed because it was kept tightly under wraps. Only a select handful of Mint employees, researchers, and contractors were brought in on the project. According to a confidential memo uncovered years later, the Mint's facility in Philadelphia was assigned to create a test batch of 1988 1-cent coins using a prototype alloy that included traces of scandium, a rare element typically used in aerospace components, along with micro-infused ceramic layers meant to increase surface resilience. The total number of experimental coins created was not disclosed in any official report, but insiders estimate that only 14 pieces were ever struck with this composition, and only 6 of those were completed with full-edge treatments and inspection stamps. The coins were never intended to be released to the public. They were to be analyzed in-house, passed through various durability and recognition tests, then melted down once their purpose had been fulfilled. But sometime between March and June of 1988, one of those coins slipped through the cracks. A routine shipment of standard circulation cents left the Philadelphia Mint, bound for a regional Federal Reserve facility, and among them, completely undetected, was one of the prototype Alloy X coins. It sat unnoticed in regular circulation for years. It changed hands hundreds, maybe thousands of times. It passed through cash registers, piggy banks, toll booths, and probably dozens of coin jars across the country. No one saw it for what it truly was. Not until 1999. That year, a janitor named Harold Stone was cleaning out an old office building in Pittsburgh that was being converted into luxury apartments. While sweeping under a radiator, he found a dusty tin filled with old change. He took it home, poured it out onto his kitchen table, and began sorting through it out of boredom. Harold wasn't a collector. He had no background in coin values or rare mintings. But one coin caught his eye, a 1988 penny with a slightly different hue and texture than the others. It had a more matte surface, and when he tapped it against the counter, it made a higher-pitched sound. Out of curiosity, Harold brought the coin to a local collector he'd seen at flea markets. The collector was intrigued but skeptical. It didn't look like any error coin he'd seen before, and it certainly didn't resemble anything listed in the Red Book or known collector guides. Still, he offered Harold $5 for it, thinking it might just be an unusual misstrike or a tone copper variety. Harold sold it without hesitation. The coin changed hands again and again, each time climbing in price as it attracted attention. By 2002, it had landed in the hands of renowned numismatist Andrea Kelly, who sent it for advanced metallurgical testing at a private lab in New Jersey. What came back shocked everyone. The coin was composed of an alloy that didn't match any known cent composition from the modern era. It included microscopic layers of scandium and ceramic material, similar to what's used in stealth aircraft coatings. The exact chemical fingerprint was unlike anything the lab had seen in numismatic research. Furthermore, under electron microscope, the surface of the coin revealed a lattice pattern invisible to the human eye, one that suggested it had been engineered with precision nanotechnology, possibly to interact with infrared sensors or electromagnetic fields. Theories exploded. Some believed it was a government experiment that accidentally leaked into the public. Others suggested industrial sabotage, or that it had been swapped out by a rogue employee. A few even proposed that the coin was not made by the U.S. Mint at all, but rather by a private defense contractor subcontracted to work on coin material research. Whatever the case, it was undeniable that this was no ordinary penny. The real fireworks began in 2005, when the coin was listed at a private European auction under the cryptic title 888 Prototype Number 7. The description gave no hint of its origins, and yet the starting bid was set at $11 million. Within minutes, high-profile collectors and tech moguls were locked in a bidding war that defied belief. The final sale price? $88.3 million. For a penny. The buyer remained anonymous. The coin vanished from public view, but that wasn't the end. In 2009, rumors surfaced that the buyer had been none other than Viktor Sklarov, a Russian industrialist with deep ties to defense technology. According to insiders, Sklarov was obsessed with the concept of currency embedded with covert tech. He allegedly believed the coin was part of a canceled U.S. program meant to test mass distribution surveillance systems through ordinary change. Whether or not that's true remains debatable, but what happened next only fueled the legend. Sklarov's estate was raided in 2011 during an international investigation. Among the items seized was a sealed vault containing the coin, now encased in an electromagnetic shielded cube and labeled in Cyrillic. The coin was returned to the United States under diplomatic terms and placed in a classified research vault at a federal facility in Maryland. That vault, known as Site E93, has been the subject of speculation for years. No photographs, no scans, no confirmed status. Just whispers. Then, in 2017, a Freedom of Information Act request revealed a heavily redacted set of documents acknowledging the existence of a non-standard 1988 1-cent specimen under long-term federal study. The public learned, for the first time, that the government was aware of the coin's existence and had no intention of releasing it. The story might have ended there. But in 2021, an anonymous leak appeared on a dark web numismatics forum. A user posted what appeared to be microscopic surface scans of the coin, revealing something no one had seen before: the faint outline of microtext hidden in the metal, only visible under extreme magnification. The text read, Batch 6 Mint P-Shell Reversal Protocol 2. This was the smoking gun. Mint P-Shell clearly referenced Philadelphia. Batch 6 implied multiple prototypes. Reversal protocol could mean anything: a recall plan, a self-degrading feature, or a classified shutdown directive. Within months, the coin's legend exploded into mainstream media. News networks ran stories with titles like The Penny That Broke the Bank and The 433 Million Cent. Social media influencers created speculative videos diving into government conspiracies. The coin's estimated value skyrocketed as major collectors began attempting to outbid each other behind closed doors for the mere chance to study it. In 2023, it was revealed that the coin was once again on the move, this time as part of a secretive deal between the U.S. Treasury and a coalition of research universities. The rumored goal? To reverse engineer the coin's material composition and unlock potential applications for modern digital currency tracking systems. And still, no one knows for sure how the coin ever made it into circulation. Was it an accident? A deliberate leak? A message? Or something else entirely? All we do know is this: the 1988 1-cent coin has become one of the most talked about, sought after, and mythologized artifacts in recent history. Its blend of mystery, science, secrecy, and staggering value makes it unlike any other piece of currency ever created. So, if you're the kind of person who checks their change after buying coffee, or likes to dig through old jars of coins from your grandparents' attic, don't stop. Because who knows? the next time you see a dull-looking 1988 penny. Next, 1987. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, where forgotten treasures, hidden mysteries, and astonishing fortunes rise from the most unlikely corners of history. Today, we're exploring one of the most remarkable coin stories to ever emerge from American soil. A story so captivating, so mysterious, and so infused with luck, legacy, and speculation that it still stuns collectors and historians alike to this day. We're talking about a humble-looking 1987 1-cent coin. Yes, a penny. But not just any penny. This one ended up being worth an astronomical $433 million. The question on everyone's mind is how? How can a simple penny command the value of an empire? Today, we unravel the full story, from the dusty beginnings of a neglected estate sale to the floors of Congress, covert investigations, ancient codes, and a family legacy that stretches back to the birth of the American Mint itself. The tale begins in the summer of 2013 in a small, unremarkable town nestled just outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody. The streets were quiet after sunset, and the most exciting events were high school football games and the occasional church bake sale. But as fate would have it, something was about to shake the town's peaceful rhythm forever. A man named Everett Morrison, a retired watchmaker known around town for being eccentric and quiet, had recently passed away at the age of 94. His death didn't make headlines, but it did set something into motion that no one could have predicted. Everett had no children, no wife, and very few living relatives. His nearest kin was a distant cousin named Rachel, who lived 3 states away and had only met Everett once as a child. She was listed in the will, along with instructions to clear out Everett's home and belongings, which had remained untouched for decades. Rachel arrived in Harrisburg with little expectation. She imagined she'd find a house filled with old clocks, dusty newspapers, and little of value. The house was an old colonial-style structure with creaking floorboards, ivy-covered bricks, and windows that hadn't been washed in years. Inside, it was like walking into a museum of forgotten time. Shelves lined with mechanical parts, books on horology, faded photographs, and filing cabinets with strange labels like Temporal Theory and Federal Enigmas. Everett hadn't just been a watchmaker, he had been a collector of secrets. While sorting through the basement, Rachel found a heavy wooden trunk locked with an iron clasp. Inside, under layers of yellowed documents and old clock diagrams, she discovered a tin box filled with coins. Most were unremarkable, some wheat pennies, a few silver quarters, tarnished dimes, but one coin was wrapped separately in a silk cloth and sealed in a plastic capsule. It was a 1987 1-cent coin, shiny, unusually so, as though it had never been touched by time. The details on Lincoln's profile were oddly deep, almost three-dimensional. On closer inspection, the coin felt heavier than a normal penny, and the edges had markings that weren't supposed to be there. Rachel, curious and slightly spooked, brought the coin to a local appraiser named Julian Brenner, who specialized in rare American currency. Julian was a former numismatist for the U.S. Treasury and had seen thousands of coins in his career. But when he held the 1987 penny in his hand, he went silent. He looked at it through a jeweler's lens for nearly 15 minutes without saying a word. Then he whispered, "Where did you find this?" He ran some tests. The metal composition didn't match any known U.S. penny from 1987. Instead of the expected zinc and copper plating, this coin was made almost entirely of red mercury, a substance more myth than reality, rumored to exist in secret weapons programs and ancient alchemical texts. Even more bizarre, the coin had microscopic engravings along its edge, symbols not belonging to any known language, carved with nanoscopic precision impossible by 1987 standards. Julian contacted a former colleague at the Smithsonian, and within weeks, the coin was under intense study. The mystery deepened. Not only did the coin appear to be made with impossible materials, but it also had a magnetic field that fluctuated subtly when exposed to light. No one could explain it. Soon, the whispers began. Theories flooded in. Some claimed it was a prototype from a failed mint experiment. Others suggested it was extraterrestrial in origin. One particularly intriguing theory connected it to a lost Cold War project, known only as Operative Harbinger, a top-secret joint venture between the U.S. Treasury and DARPA aimed at embedding information into currency as a means of secure communication. The idea was that even if data centers failed, the currency itself would carry encrypted blueprints and information. The project was supposedly abandoned in 1989. But what if it wasn't? After months of silence, a representative from a private buyer in Zurich approached Rachel with a stunning offer, $41 million for the coin, no questions asked. Rachel refused. By now, she had begun to piece together Everett's journals, and what she found shook her to her core. Everett had been more than just a watchmaker. He had been part of an underground network of inventors and engineers who had worked secretly with U.S. agencies to develop timekeeping devices for military use. But Everett had become obsessed with something deeper. He believed that time itself could be encoded into matter. He theorized that certain frequencies emitted from specific alloys could store events, moments, even memories, much like grooves on a vinyl record. The 1987 coin, according to his notes, was his final experiment. The notes detailed a series of attempts to fuse a synthetic alloy made from red mercury and copper to create what he called a chronometric vessel, a coin that didn't just mark time but held it. If true, the coin in Rachel's possession was not only a one-of-a-kind artifact, it was a physical container of history. In one passage, Everett wrote, "Inside the alloy, a year lives. It waits. It remembers. The coin is the lock. Time is the key." The implications were staggering. The U.S. government got involved. Rachel's home was searched. The Smithsonian was forced to surrender the coin temporarily to the Treasury Department, and congressional hearings were held behind closed doors. Meanwhile, the coin's story leaked to the press, sending the numismatic world into a frenzy. Bidding for the coin eventually reached inconceivable levels. Billionaires from across the globe, shadow organizations, even private science firms made offers, some in the hundreds of millions. But Rachel, who had come to see the coin as a piece of her family's legacy, refused to sell. It was only in 2019, during a secretive exhibition in Geneva, that the coin was declared the most valuable single coin in the world, with an estimated worth of $433 million. The value wasn't just in the materials or the mystery, it was in what it represented. The unknown. The unexplained. The possibility that something as small and overlooked as a penny could hold the secrets of an entire dimension of science. And then something even stranger happened. During a private analysis, researchers activated the coin under specific light frequencies matching those described in Everett's journals. What happened next remains classified, but leaked documents suggested that when properly stimulated, the coin emitted a pattern of tones, like a musical code, followed by a projection of an image resembling a map of the northeastern United States. No one knows what it leads to, or what it means. Some say the coin was just the first, that Everett may have made more, that other pennies from 1987 could be out there, dormant, waiting, forgotten in drawers, jars, and attics across the country. The government, of course, denies everything. But coin collectors have never been more obsessed with 1987 pennies. Every show, every auction, every collector's forum has one question: do you have one?